Hey everyone, it's Leigh here. Just a little bit of information before the Adam Hollioake interview that you're about to listen to. It is actually episode 31, despite what he says at the end. It's not our 32nd episode. He's an amazing man to talk to. Professional cricketer, professional MMA fighter, boxer, media presenter, TV show director, and then a cricket coach. So he has some amazing stories to tell. We get through plenty of these in the interview. However, there is one story that we do not cover. You'll hear Adam reference his younger brother Ben during the interview on multiple occasions. What you need to know is that in March of 2002, Adam's younger brother Ben was tragically killed in a car accident in Perth. His death at the age of 24 was the youngest of any England Test cricketer. For this particular episode, we didn't feel as though we could bring this up with the respect it deserves, considering we'd probably more centred the chat around good times and laughs. Adam actually said that we could ask about it, and in the future we'd love this to be something that we feel confident doing. However, we believe it's definitely important information for you to be aware of throughout the interview. We hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Let's get into it.
Stop beating your gums and sound the attack.
All right, hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of the We Got the Chocolates podcast, and what a special edition it is today, Has. This is actually our first time ever recording on the road, you would say.
We are away from home today, yeah.
Very away from home, although sort of a second home for you, I guess, set up in the Queensland Cricket office here. But very fortunate to have another guest, which is why we are here, and probably one of the bigger names we've had on the podcast, you'd have to suggest, without wanting to, at the risk of embarrassing him, but I don't think he'll mind. So this man's actually played 3 different sports. I'll read a little bio for you here. 3 different sports professionally, but is most known probably for his achievements in the cricketing world, where he's played a staggering 173 first class and 284 list A games, plus 4 test matches and 35 one-day internationals, and all of those are for England, 14 of which he captained. We've actually spoken about him and his proficiency in joke telling on the podcast in the past, a few episodes back. And so if you haven't figured it out already, you haven't put 2 and 2 together, or you are a new listener, the person that we're lucky enough to have chatting to us today is none other than Adam Hollioake. How are you?
Hey, awesome, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No, you are most welcome. Great microphone etiquette that you've got already. You can tell that you're quite a seasoned veteran of that type of activity.
Well, it's good. You've got all the gear here. I came in, I thought I was walking into the set on BBC or something like that. You guys have got the tops on, all the part, mate, all the gear.
That's right. Yeah, the tops are a new addition actually, as they were a Christmas present.
Yeah, they fit well. But we try our best to be as professional as we can, even though we're definitely amateurs in this.
Well, luckily you were quite late, so it gave us some time to set up, which was good.
Well, it was the Polynesian times, mate. We work on the Polynesian time.
Now, Adam, we usually start with something slightly more serious, like your sporting achievements and the like, but it sort of feels weird for me to call you Adam, as it probably is for Leigh here, because you've coached both of us.
Didn't really roll off the tongue, actually, I'll be honest.
Well, actually, when people say Adam, I usually look around and think, who the hell are they talking about? So I don't think I only get called that by my mum, like when I'm in trouble. So, or my ex-wife.
But you have coached both of us as a part of the Queensland cricket squads over the last year, so we both know you as Smokes. So I'd like to get this out of the way so we can start referring to you by that nickname. And we like nicknames in the show. We like to ask our guests what it means. So is there a PG meaning behind the nickname Smokes?
There is actually. It's like, I think when most people just join in the bandwagon, I've been called Smokes since I was about 12, but it's one of those things where people here at QC, the CEO, the chairman of the board, they all call me Smokes, but I don't think few people aren't sort of game to ask in case it's not a great reason for why, but it's actually quite boring. It's like, typical cricket nicknames, Has, I don't know where they got that from. You know what I mean? So the Smokes is actually quite simple. People usually think it's something to do with like drug taking or smoking cigarettes, something like that, but it's actually Hollioake, and then all through school I was called Holy Smoke. And then I think that was too long, and then it just went to Smokey and then Smokes. So it's actually just another boring cricket name, really.
It's quite an evolution, though. It's got through 3 stages of life there. I quite like that.
It has, yeah.
Passed the test of time. No, it makes sense. That's a good one.
No, that's a very...
Sorry to let you down. It's a boring one to start you off.
It's quite funny, though, how nicknames just like... Because I've called you Smokes the whole time, and I would have no idea why. Like, I probably hadn't earned the right to call you that. It's just everyone else did. So I didn't even know your name was Adam, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I don't... Like I said, I don't even own up to. I don't look around when people say Adam. I start looking around. So
yeah,
that's even my mum and dad call me that now, I think. So
Now, Smokes, you actually, usually, we try and encourage people to listen to an episode of the podcast, but you actually tried to do that and ran into some technical difficulties, didn't you? So we were going to sort of ask for a bit of feedback and see if there's any areas you thought we could improve. Give you the Matt Renshaw episode to listen to. You would have enjoyed that.
Yeah, well, I tried to listen to one on the way up here this morning. I live on the Gold Coast, and that was the QC up here in Brisbane. So I thought, now that'll give me a good time to listen to all the decent stuff you guys have done on the way up.
I think the hour drive would have been too long, actually.
Technologically, I'm challenged, so it didn't happen. So
that's a shame,
unfortunately, I would have. I'll listen to one on the way back.
Yeah.
Probably listen to myself.
Listen to your own. Send it straight to you. Absolutely. Well, now that you did obviously get that important stuff out of the way in terms of the nickname basis, we can move on to your cricketing expertise, Smokes. So some of our younger listeners, who we do have a few of actually, probably wouldn't have seen you play because your last one-day international for England was actually in 1999. But those who did see you play, which was me as I was growing up, and probably you as well, know that I guess you probably weren't renowned for your sort of express pace or having the perfect batting technique. I hope that doesn't offend you to say. But certainly extremely skillful with sort of slower balls and then getting the ball to reverse swing probably before it was quite as fashionable as it is now. So I guess, you were certainly known for that, and then obviously your sort of determination and aggressive nature with the bat. What do you think it was that actually made you a successful cricketer? Because I've spoken to you a bit, and you're not someone that sort of would say, I was born the most talented person ever.
No, I think I'm probably speaking to the right people here to know what we're talking about. I mean, you guys are here having a crack. You're not the most talented broadcasters yourself, but you're having a go, and you'll make a go of it. So as I was the same, I was, I think I was often compared to my brother, who was obviously highly talented, like next level talented. At the age of 18, smashing Warne and McGrath all around the place in your one-day international debuts, pretty talented stuff. So I think when you're compared to him, you're on a downer straight away. So, and I'm the first to admit I wasn't, naturally blessed with ability, but I kind of made up for it in other ways, in attitude. Just basically I played at an intensity which I don't think, in the era I played in, I don't think anyone matched the intensity I played with, and I had to. I'm not talking myself up. I just had to play at that intensity to be able to compete because my skills weren't necessarily as good as the others, and I pretty much got every ounce of what ability I had out of myself. So they were probably the best things I had. Like you said, I wasn't the fastest bowler in the world, and I just, as a batsman, I just relied on mental toughness and just getting what I could out of myself. So that's where my cricket was at, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was reading somewhere that you were told by experts growing up that you should give up your bowling because it was sort of biomechanically retarded. And but
that was actually Troy Cooley, actually.
Oh, really?
Troy Cooley. He said I was bowling stress fractures, or his exact words.
But you've gone on to get some of the best batters in the world out, like Ricky Ponting, Brian Lara, Mark and Steve Waugh. That's a pretty serious 11 you've made up there. We talked to Renshaw, Matt Renshaw, about his and my 11s, the best players we've gotten out. And
funnily enough, after we did that episode, I obviously went down to Adelaide and played in the second 11 game where Smokes was the coach, and so we got him, Chris Swan and Mitch Swepson all doing their 11s in the change room while we were batting one day, and Smokes' 11 was ridiculous compared to everyone else. He had Sachin Tendulkar in there, Brian Lara in there.
Brian Lara a few times, can't make it was like, the thing is though, it's like the embarrassing thing was when I started seeing people like Martin Crowe and people like that, and young guys were saying, who's that? Like, it's just like, you're getting old then when people, the footage is in black and white.
But you were counting beach cricket wickets.
Yeah, hell yeah, beach cricket. No. Only Viv. I wanted to put Viv up there so badly because I got him out on the beach, but it's like, it can't. It's got to be a list A or like a first class game, unfortunately.
Would have been a big scalp.
Yeah. Massive scalp, Viv, absolutely.
I just had him caught just in front of the esky.
Now, something that probably, I guess, a lot of Australian listeners, which is probably where we're predominantly marketed, well, we market ourselves actually, but probably mostly in Australia, would not, I guess, be aware of your county cricket career as well, and the fact that you obviously had a lot of leadership roles throughout your cricket career. You actually captained Surrey to 9 trophies between the years of 1993 and 2004. Always find it awkward, like, telling our guests that, because it's probably something you already know. But did you find that captaincy, I guess, made you a better player? Because we sort of see as a common trait, if we talk specifically cricket at the moment, that a lot of probably modern day captains, you can see that it sort of affects them.
Yeah. It's a really good question, actually. It's I think there were times where it went both ways, and I think looking back on it now, one of the roles I have since finishing cricket is I go and coach the level 3 coaches back in Australia on the art of captaincy. And one of the first thing I said, the first most important thing about captaincy is everyone says, getting the right field positions or this or that or having a good team unit. I'm like, the most important thing about captaincy is making sure your own game's in order. Otherwise, you're playing with 10 men, and often the captain is the best player. So if you're playing with no captaincy tactics, make up for you allowing the captaincy to weigh down on your individual game. So I think at county cricket, I was pretty much able to separate that. When I played international cricket, I found it a bit harder because, as you guys know, there's a lot of extracurricular stuff that goes on with captaining your country, and especially places like Australia and England, big countries, big responsibilities. So I'd be lying if I said I think it definitely affected my game there. I was fortunate or unfortunate, depending on which way you're looking at it, to be made captain of England after 5 games. So I hadn't really established myself that well as a player. It would have been nice to have had longer to do that. But I think at that stage, it was so rare for us to beat Australia. And we beat you guys 3-0 in a one-day series, and I got man of the series and stuff like that. So they made me one-day captain straight after that, which was flattering and everything like that. But in hindsight, I probably wasn't quite ready for that jump at that stage.
And what are your thoughts on that Aussie team you played back in the 90s? What do you think about them?
Oh, I love those guys. Just because I think it's funny when I play against them, they're obviously amazing players. I mean, they're once in a lifetime players. We may never see players like that again in our life. So, I was fortunate enough to see another team that were like that. You guys are probably too young, but the West Indies side in the 70s and 80s
were. Hear plenty of stories about that.
They were unbelievable, and I'd definitely put the Australians in that same bracket. So, we might be lucky enough to see another side of that come along. But I think also the thing about that side, which was the characters. It was like all those stories that you hear about, the people like Dennis Lilly and Rod Marsh and Booney and the drinking games and all that sort of stuff. It's like you're playing against these guys and they've got their own character out there, like caricatures of themselves out there on the field. It's just so much personality. I mean, people talk about their ability with the bat and ball or whatever, but they were big characters as well. No match referees back in those days, so you could get away with stuff, and it was good. And I think that created characters and battles and stuff like that. So they were actually my favourite side to play against. They were the best, but I loved playing against them. It reminded me of backyard battles with my dad and brother because it was the same banter, the same sort of stuff. So,
and were you one to embrace a battle, Smokes, or did you like getting up and about for when people were coming hard at you?
I had to. That was one of my tactics. Was because I grew up in Australia. So, and as you guys know, here it's very much the Australian way to. A little bit of gamesmanship, a little bit of mental disintegration. I think you guys hit it as that. Like, there's basically you guys are sledging, but it's like, let's call it mental disintegration. I loved it because my dad did it to me from the age of 5 or 6, and still to this day we do it to each other on the phone. We're just constantly finding ways to wind each other up. But I thought they were brilliant at it, and it's like anything. I think you're seeing at the moment, Joss Butler, the stump mics on, and people complaining about it. And it's like you're always going to get people who complain about that side, the Australian side, but no one would have complained if they weren't so good. So the fact they won so much, I was like, everyone would be like, oh, but they're sledging. There's you know what? I don't think it would have made any difference. Even if they weren't sledging, they were still better than everybody else. So people hid behind the reason and gave the excuse that that's why they won solely on the fact that they were sledging. It was like, Warne was quite a good bowler. So was McGrath, So it doesn't really. I don't listen to those things. I think they're a great side and full of great personalities.
Well, Smokes, actually, it seems as you've mentioned Warne, I just wanted to just share something for you that you might find interesting. I'm unsure if you're aware of your YouTube fame.
No doubt.
But there's probably two videos that I can use, and you're in multiple videos, but there's two that I can use as a direct comparison here that I would just want you to consider some viewership numbers on. So there's option A, right, on YouTube, is titled Adam Hollioake scores 83 against South Africa, one day international. Yeah.
About 5 people watched that.
It was 189 views. Which is exciting. The second YouTube video is titled Worst Batting to a Shane Warne Straight Ball. How many views do you reckon that's got?
Oh, that's got to be in the millions, surely.
It is. It's just shy. It's 900,000 views.
Is it?
It's at. Yeah.
And I reckon most of those are my family. I reckon as well.
I'll tell you who was quite damning in his I guess description of your playing of this ball was the commentator
Tony Gregg. Yeah, I heard that. I felt that was the thing that disturbed me the most. Actually, when we got out of that, there's a couple of funny stories about that, but we'd obviously you see a highlight, any highlight you go back and look at the highlights of your careers later on, you go, oh, what sort of shot was that? So you don't see the build up to it and what's happened in beforehand and everything like that. And so any highlights always look 100 times worse. But the funny thing about that game is I came in, he'd been spinning them square. So obviously we were worried about getting nicked off to slip. And I think, and this one I let go, didn't spin, hit. Well, I said when I came off, what I didn't know, obviously, because I was looking down at the ball, not looking back at my stumps. And when I walked off and sat in the change room, Dean Headley and Mark Ramprakash were in the change room, and I just said, so what did that just clip the outside of off? I went, middle and leg, mate. I said, probably too close to leave then. So I got a little bit of kudos there for not taking it too seriously, but it was a fairly good bit of bowling. Every time I see Warne, he likes to remind me about it as well.
Yeah. Well, Smokes, do you mind if I just play that sound effect for our listeners so that they can hear the description? Yeah, just so they can hear the description of it.
You cannot leave them when they're pitching on middle and going to hit middle and off. He was obviously totally and utterly bamboozled. That is the end of Adam Hollioake, and he won't want to watch this replay. Everything's exposed.
Smokes, that's how it was described.
Yeah.
Did you want to watch that replay?
Oh, I've watched it hundreds of times. I laugh. Actually, there was a guy called Rory Bremner, who was a comedian in England, and he did a clip on it, a whole comedy sketch about it. So the whole sketch, it was like a whole sketch. It was like me, because in the one days I'd like smashed Warne around a little bit. So there's footage of me like belting him around, and then there's footage of me standing there with Graham Thorpe, and he was saying, "Oh, how would you play Warne?" So I was saying, "Oh, you just do this and you do that," and obviously, all the while, this comedian's doing impersonations of my so-called Australian accent, and then obviously telling him how to do it, and then obviously the next ball, the highlight is me just getting bowled out first ball. So it's like, shit. It's like yeah. I've relived this so many times. So, and people are always like, "Oh, you're going to be all right if I talk about it." So it's part of my history. So it's I've embraced it.
That's what I like about you, Smokes. You're happy to talk about these things.
Yeah, well, we probably should move on to a more positive thing for you to reminisce on.
I was going to say, how long are we going to?
We could mention that many people finish their careers in a poor way or poor performances they don't like to think about. But you actually came out of retirement in 2004 to play a charity match, World 11 versus in Asia 11, and you finished your last 3 balls of your career with 3 wickets, the hat trick.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was a funny hat trick because it was like it was one of those ones where I got 2 wickets off the last ball of an over, and then a wicket the first ball of the next over. So it was split, and I bowled it. And then in that, Warne was on our side in that game, so I was playing for the rest of the world, and I think Sean Pollock and some big names anyway. I can't remember exactly who was playing, but I remember running around like I just won the World Cup. But obviously no one else was really aware of it. So no one else quite put one and one together that it was a hat trick. So you're running around like, and I think they were just thinking, what's this idiot doing? It's like he's just got, I think it was like, I don't know, Javagal Srinath out or something like that. I was like, I don't know. It was like, it was number 11 or something. It wasn't anyone of any note. I know that. And then we watched the replay in the change room, and again, Warne was there, and I said, they were like, well, what are you doing there? I said, well, I got a hat trick, but when I've seen other people get it, other people, usually everyone else runs up to them, but you guys just didn't give a shit. Yeah. But it was a good way. That was literally the last ball of my so-called international career was a hat trick, so it was a good way to finish.
Did you ever get tempted to come out of retirement then, Smokes?
Well, I did come out of retirement, but I just didn't get internationally played another international. So I played
T20s for Sussex.
Essex.
Oh, Essex.
Essex, yeah, played a couple of that. But yeah, I was like, I got asked to go and play in the IPL in 2009 with John Buchanan, and then I was warming up for that. I was getting ready to play, and my heart just wasn't in it, so I just called it a day.
Yeah. Because that was right at the start of 2020 as well, wasn't it? 2009-ish.
Yes, well, the start of the IPL.
Certainly.
I think that was the second or third IPL that I was going to play in.
Okay.
I mean, we started T20 in England in 2003.
Yeah, that was early hours, wasn't it? And then right at the start, 2020 was, I know when Australia first played New Zealand, they were wearing retro kit and everyone was wearing bucket hats. It was treated as like a gag.
Oh, it was like when they asked us, we're playing. I literally thought they were announcing it on April Fool's. I thought it's got to be some sort of joke because we'd played everything before that, 60 overs, 45, 55. We were like, why don't we just play 50 over cricket? And then they said we're going to play 20. I was like, surely that's a joke. As I remember playing it, thinking this will never catch on. It was like this will never catch on in England, and it didn't. It's just gone worldwide. So it's like
that's right. Well, talking about that development, I mean, you played county cricket in England back in 1992, and I mean, since retiring, you've done a lot of different things. But sticking with cricket for now, I mean, you recently helped coach the English Lions, and now an assistant coach with the Queensland Bulls team. How have you seen the game develop over the years? Like, what are the big changes that you've really noticed?
Well, my first pre-season was 1989.
Yeah.
So to give you a sort of quick snapshot of that, we turned up. Our contracts were April the 1st. We turned up. Everyone just they handed out some gear. Some guys' gear didn't fit because they'd put on so much weight over the winter. I was young. I was 17 or something at the time, but it was the physio who was like a doctor from World War II. He literally said, all right, you guys are all unfit, start doing sprints. So he started doing 200-meter sprints, having done like nothing else. So people were just getting hamstring injury. And I remember watching it. It was like, that was April the 1st. Our first game was meant to be April the 18th or 20th. So it was like 2 or 3 weeks later. And it was like, right, we've got to get fit. So all the way up to when I retired in 2004, I remember we were getting ready, preparing for the finals of the T20. And I remember I had a parachute strapped to my back and running through cones and stuff like that. And I was thinking, wow, how far has this game come in this time? It was crazy. And then all the way till now, when I look at what you guys do, and I'm like, any guy my age who's sitting here saying back in our day it was better, they really need to go take their head and flush it down the toilet because the game is like so far advanced from when I was playing. It's so much more professional. That doesn't mean that there were elements of our game back in the day that you could still learn from, of course, but the game is so far advanced physically and professionally. It's crazy. You have to accept. I think as a coach, you got to accept that and move with it and learn. And still try and pass on the experience that you've gained over the years.
Yeah, and you're probably slightly more relaxed and have that relaxed outlook on the game compared to a few more professional coaches. I mean, I know the boys in the Queensland squad love having you around, and you've got pearls of wisdom that you give us, which are awesome, how to play the juke balls, things like that. But you do have probably been guilty in the past of being maybe a couple of minutes late to the odd training session, or wearing jeans and thongs to a training session, bringing your son along when he's got the day off school in an environment when those things are probably slightly frowned upon maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that the way I've always played my game, even back in the day or whatever, is I think that at the end of the day, we can all be guilty of, this is not war. This is, I know you got to compete, you compete hard, but at the end of the day, it's a game. You're supposed to enjoy it. So I feel that as a coach, my my knowledge is the key to what I and anything I can pass on. I'm not one who's too worried about what you wear. I don't care if you like got slightly the wrong t-shirt on, or if you've got a reason for why you're going to be late, then hey, that's life. This is what happens. You're meant to here to enjoy the game. I think as soon as coaches can be guilty of making it feel like a job. So I think that's my the way I try and coach. I try and be relaxed. I try and let the players do things their way and try and just guide and offer advice where I can. And you as a player, you'll have a motto. When I was playing, it was like, I want to bowl every ball like it's the last ball. Like I could keel over dead tomorrow. I want to bowl it with that much effort, and I want to bat as if this is the last time ball I'm ever going to face. So every ball I tried to do that. And as a coach, I now just try and I know how stressful it is a player, and I try and bring that relaxed environment onto the players, because it's hard enough as it is. There's enough pressures on you as a player without a coach adding more to that. I think as a coach, you've got to try and take the pressure away and remind the players, because we're all guilty of it, of thinking this is life and death when it's not. It's just a game.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. That's great.
Do you, Smokes, obviously, like that era, probably you would have had a more relaxed approach, certainly like when you first began playing professional cricket. I always hear sort of Kerry O'Keefe get on the mic and tell stories about when he had to bowl one day that was ridiculously hungover and ended up taking 4 for and stuff. Have you got any quality stories of that sort of nature, of people that you just were the most relaxed operators that you've ever played cricket with, that have come and performed under duress?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stories. I mean, I sort of went through the era of like the drinking culture when I first started. Was you'd be entitled to order a couple of drinks after the game. So it was like, if you ordered anything other than a Jack Daniels and Coke or a beer, you were like, you're a girl. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's like, obviously they got you have to have your supplements and Gatorade and what have you. But I think probably more is just what I'm noticing is quite a big difference is obviously the crackdown on what you're allowed to say on the field, and what was just expected back in the days. Obviously, making my debut against Australia, I was coming out here. So we're coming out on the tour out to play against Australia, and we all have team goals. So I remember sitting there, and Alex Stewart was, I want to score, 200 or 300s. I want to score X amount of games, X amount of hundreds, and be the top run scorer in the series. Darren Goff was, I want to dominate Mark Waugh and Steve Waugh. Everyone had to go around and say what their goal was. I just said, well, I'm going out to Australia. I said, I know they're going to hate me, so I want to leave Australia the most unpopular man in the country. So my brother was like laughing because he was pretty laid-back character as well. And so we think the first game was SCG. And I think within half an hour, I had the whole 40,000 of them singing Hollioake's a wanker. So my brother ran past and he was like, well, it looks like you achieved your goal. I said, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, mate. They're talking about you. So
how did you manage to polarise opinion that quickly?
I don't know. I just had one of those heads, I think, which people just hated. It was just like, I think there's not many things Australians hate more than a pommy cricketer.
There's only one that's defected from Australia.
Well, I was going to say there's only one thing more, and that's one that was originally Australia in the first place. So I think some of my favourites were Judas, Turncoat, Traitor. And then added to that was the fact that I had a brother as well. So there's 2 of us. So it was just like, it was relentless. And I mean, actually a good one on that was when I made my debut, my test debut, because we obviously played Australia in the one days and we'd beaten you guys 3-0. I got man of the series. My brother got man of the match in one of the games. So when we went to play the test matches, we knew the Aussies are going to come hard at us because, we'd been so dominant in the one days. So it's kind of like D-Day. You're on death row. You know you're going to get it when you come out there. And I walked out to bat, and as I come out there, it was like McGrath. So Glenn McGrath's bowling the first ball. And so I turned around and we got Healy keeping, and we had Mark Taylor at first slip, Mark Waugh second slip, Shane Warne third slip, Steve Waugh gully, and a couple of others are yapping away at me as well. So I'm taking guard and I'm looking down. I'm thinking, you're trying to stay present. So, all I'm thinking, try and watch the ball, McGrath, watch the ball, watch the seam, try and stay present. Don't think past, don't think future, stay present. And then they started clapping. So come on then, boys, here we go. here we go. Got this bloke here making his test debut. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, they're going down the debut thing, whatever, get some new material, boys. And he was like, come on, here we go. All his family watching him on TV, back in Australia, wishing he was playing for Australia. So I'm thinking, wow, they're going down the Australia route. And then they said, Auntie Jan, Uncle Rex. I was like, oh my God, they know Uncle Rex. It was like, so they'd actually gone away and like found out my family and researched it and everything like that. And then they were like, and because it's Warne, he was one of the predominant ones, and Warne's obviously got his reputation with the women. As I'm facing my first ball in Test cricket, I'm looking up thinking, this McGrath running into bowl, I'm thinking, Shane Warne and Auntie Jan, was that a thing? Or like, so it's like, I was luckily bowled a wide one first ball. I was able to let it go.
Oh, that's class.
And we just mentioned your coaching earlier, and you probably made a decision that not many people would have thought is a common sense one, is you decided to coach a team in Afghanistan during the turbulent time over there, terror attacks going on. You've got to tell us what that experience was like.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, actually. It was probably, I don't know, it was probably just before I started here, I reckon, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Dean Jones asked me to come over there and coach one of the sides in their Afghan Premier League, which I guess was equivalent to the Big Bash here. And obviously my first concern was safety, so I asked about it, and they said, well, we're getting presidential security, which we did, like amazing security, and went there, and I was like a 2-week coaching gig, something like that. So I think we played like 6 or 7 games in 2 weeks, so pretty full on.
Yeah.
But amazing security, like we had armoured vehicles and machine gun guys like on jeeps all the way around us. It was like, and the hotel was crazy. Like it was like going through airport security to get it. It took 10 minutes to get in every time, and then obviously the ground was barricaded as it was. So I think might have been the second or third game we were playing. The actual bomb went off, and 9 of the security were killed. And it blew out one of the buildings out the front of the stadium. So the way I like to explain it to people who weren't there, it's like people are like, this bomb went off 75 metres from where I was in the changing room. So people go, wow, that was like close. I said, well, the way I like to explain it is, if you're at the Gabba and you're in the changing room, the bomb went off on the corner of where that car park is, that Stanley Street car park is. So that was the first checkpoint. Then you have to get into the stadium, then into the actual stands, and then so there was still 3 more checkpoints to get through. Yeah. But I could feel the vibrations go through my body. It was like, Were you
questioning your decision to coach at that stage?
I was questioning whether I was alive at the time. I was like, it was, and I thought, surely not. We're in Afghanistan. It was a cliche to think there was a bomb. I was thinking, there's got to be an explanation. It's
earthquake.
It's something, anything but I was thinking it's just too cliche. And then we had Herschel Gibbs and a few other guys were, and I see them sprinting off the pit. I was like, okay, this is something serious. So obviously we were paid up front when we got there, and they said if there's any trouble, then you can leave and go straight home. You get your cash up front. So
did you take that clause?
Well, I had the cash. It was I had it in my back at the hotel, so I had the option to just get on the next plane out of there if I wanted. Yeah. But also the Afghan people, they were like, it's easy when you're over here away from everything to just view them as people almost from another planet. You don't really know them. They're so far. Like we read about Afghanistan in the newspaper, but I'd been there already for 4 or 5 days, and I'd spoken to these people on the phone and on FaceTime leading up to getting over there. So I'd developed a little bit of rapport and a relationship with them, and their passion for cricket was no different to us. They love the game, I'm sure there's no one that does as good a podcast over there as you guys do, but maybe there's a job to be had over there, mate.
So the language barrier might be an issue.
But you could see that they were just so happy to have international players in their country. Yeah. So then straight away I was sort of stuck with with a moral decision to make. Do I just bail on these guys? If I go now, these guys are never getting cricket back here again. It's like... Yeah. So they came to us and they were like, literally, you could see they were like heartbroken. I think they were thinking these guys are going to leave. Our tournament's finished. and that's it. It's going to be done. Anyway, I was sitting there and I said, I don't want to make a decision now. A bomb just went off 2-3 hours ago. Obviously, you're emotional. You're not going to make a good decision. So they got all the facts around us and decided, told us how it was going to move going forward. They were going to give us presidential security, so they were going to block off 2 kilometres around the stadium. And then after the next day, I'd sort of relaxed a little bit, and I said, you know what? When I was growing up, my dad always said, you stay till the job's done. You never quit on a job. So I just decided, I'm going to stay. I'm going to fulfill my contract and stay till the end of the gig. And I was satisfied that I was going to be safe. So that's what I did.
And I don't know if you can take all the credit for this, but obviously Afghanistan cricket's gone from strength to strength since you coached over there.
No, that's nothing to do with me. The talent that was there before I got there was outstanding. Like they already had guys performing on a world level, but I think since then they've got international status, and they're only going to get stronger. Yeah. I mean, I made a big statement when I was there, or I think afterwards, where I said I think they'll be one of the top sides in the world within a decade. They've got a big population. They all play cricket. There's no other sports to, not like in Australia where we've got rugby, AFL, soccer, hockey. Cricket's their thing. They've got a big population and they're big, stronger. They're not like the Indians. These guys are big. They've got the Russian influence, physical. So they're big, strong boys. So they got some guys who wang it down there and
hit them a long way as well.
Exactly. So they're. I think they're going to be something to beware of.
Smokes, you've actually had a couple of terrifying experiences in your life, I believe, because I've heard a little whisper of a story of you actually being robbed by a grandma whilst in Australia as well, which is not a common sort of news item.
No. That was horrific. It was I was moving house and I had some excess stuff which was too good to just throw down the tip. So I decided and there's an app called Gumtree where you can sell off your unwanted household belongings for quite a low price. So
Sam's all over anything that makes him a little bit of money on the side.
So I decided I wanted to sell a few things, and I got this cabinet and I put it on there. I think it was $50, something like that from memory. And this little old lady came around. We'd had quite a lot of conversations leading up to it and to and fro. And she got there and she was old. I mean, I'm not great with, once people get over 70, they're just old. So I reckon she was 80 something. But she seemed so nice. And she said, "Oh, can you carry it out the front for me, love?" So I've carried it, and then I put the seats down. Put the towel down so I didn't scratch the back of her boot and everything like that, and put it in there. And she said, "Oh, I'm just going to get the cash out of the glove box, love." So she got in the car, and then I heard the car start, and I thought, oh, well, maybe she's getting the aircon on, cooling it down. And next when she started driving off, and I was still in denial because I was thinking, oh, she's just going to turn it around. Only the fact was she was facing the right way, and she just drove off. So I know at that stage, I've obviously fought professionally, and I'm meant to be mean and chasing or be angry or whatever. But the only emotion that sort of came to my mind was I was just embarrassed, and I was just trying to see if any of my neighbours just see me get rolled by some 80-year-old lady. So she was mean. She was like, and then I tried conversing with her, and she just blanked me. So I got donuts. So I was like,
screamed.
Yeah, and I mean, you're a coach at Queensland Cricket now, so you're back living on the Gold Coast, and hasn't been all plain sailing. Even apart from that, I've heard your place of residence has been broken into, or at least attempted to, a couple of times since being in Australia.
Yeah, well, one was in Perth. I think the main one was that was quite a scary occasion actually. I was out, and my ex-wife was at home, and I went out with a friend, and I was actually out eating dinner, and she messaged saying, "What are you still doing here? Haven't you left yet?" So then I realised that someone was in the house. I was only probably half a kilometre away, so I just jumped in my car and started driving home. And I rang her and I said, "What's going on there?" She said, "Oh, I can hear someone out there." I said, "Push the alarm." So we had a panic alarm in the bedroom. So at this stage, I'm probably 200 metres away from my house. So in my mind, I'm thinking, if she's pushing the panic alarm, this guy's going to come running out the front at the same time that I'm driving in there, and my kids are in there as well. I'm thinking, I'm going to run this fool over. This guy comes out, he's getting hit by the car. So I came like flying in there, but and as I came in, I could see this guy running out the back. So I started chasing him, like, but this guy, I think he was like quite a skinny guy, like pretty athletic. So I started chasing him, like he went up over the fence. I started chasing. I went up over the fence as well. But then come to the next one was a bit higher fence. I started chasing. I was thinking, if I get this guy, I'm going to pull his limbs off. And he's too fast. Eh? He's like, he's too fast and too agile. He's just over there. I was like, who the hell was that guy? It was like totally outran me and outmaneuvered me, and I was just like left there, like just feeling fat and unfit.
Maybe you still had that parachute on from pre-season.
I think I did. I think I'm constantly walk around with it. Feels like I walk around with one 24/7.
Oh, now you've actually just alluded to probably our next question, actually, Smokes, which was about your professional, I guess, fighting career. Obviously, most people probably don't chase robbers or burglars, but that was something that you were happy to do despite the unsuccessful nature of it.
Yeah.
But we've spoken plenty about your professional cricketing life, but then obviously since retiring, you competed professionally in boxing, MMA as well. So I guess is fighting something you did a lot of before that point, or was it just something that just you sort of stumbled across after your cricket career?
No, I'd done it from a young age. I'd done it from when I was 12. I used to sneak out of boarding school to go and do boxing. So I'd box from the age of that. And during the off season, I used to go and spar with a lot of my mates who were fighting for titles, or I'd go and spar with them. And then but obviously I could only do that during the off season, and when I had a bit of spare time, so I'd do that. And then I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in about probably just the last year or two before I retired from cricket. So I started doing some of that, which is more of a grappling sort of wrestling art. So I did that, and then after I retired, I put on some weight pretty quickly, and I decided, but I also broke my ankle, so I couldn't do much running. So I decided I was going to go back and start wrestling to try and lose the weight. And then one day I just turned up, and the guys were there. We're not doing wrestling today. We're doing boxing, striking. So because it's an MMA place, I said, okay, I'll join in. So the guy straight away was like, oh, you've done this before? I said, yeah, I've been boxing since I was 12. So then he said, would you be interested in coming down? We've got the Australian cruiserweight champion here. Would you be interested in coming down and doing some sparring with him? He's getting ready for a fight. So I said, yeah, sure. I'm not very fit, but I'll do a few rounds. And anyway, I went down and I dropped him. And straight away there was people then asking me if I would be interested in fighting professionally. And I was like, I wasn't interested. I was nearly 40 at the time. And I was like, nah, I'm not interested. And then he appealed to the one thing which would always get me to do anything, and that was my ego. So he said, wouldn't it be great to say you captained your country and boxed professionally? No one's ever done that before. And they hadn't at the time until Andrew Flintoff went and did it as well. So I said, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So he said, well, I can organise a fight for you. So I said, okay, well, when's the fight? And he said, fight Saturday. So what day's today? It was like Tuesday. I was like, oh, well, I could get in a fight down the pub. We've got gloves on and a canvas and there's no glasses. And if I start getting hurt, the referee will stop it. So let's do it. So next minute I was making my professional boxing debut. And then I went and I knocked that guy out. And then because of that, everyone knew me as a wrestler back on the Gold Coast. And I was asked to go and fight in a cage fight. So the next minute, within a month, I was like, I'd done both. So interesting one was like talking about Australian sledging and what have you. I've always been sledged by all my life, been sledged by Aussies, and
even after cricket, just in general life.
Just in general life, just even my own dad's like has a crack at it still. But as I'm walking to that cage, I remember I was like, I'm not a nervy kind of guy. I'm usually pretty chilled. I take things in my stride. But when I was walking to that cage for the first time, I was like, the freaking hell am I doing here? Like, how have I ended up? How have I ended up in this situation where I'm walking towards a cage, about to lock me in the cage there, and I could see the guy that was in there. I could see like him from standing. He's already in there, and his neck, I could see it was like sticking out from like it was almost as wide as his head. And I was walking towards the cage. My trainer's also my best mate, and one of the best trainers in Australia. And as I was walking to the cage, I think it might be one of the few times in life where I think I was like slightly hesitant. I think he picked up on that, and he was like, as I was walking there, I think he could feel that I was hesitant, and he just leaned in. I thought, oh, here we go. He's going to give me like a Churchillian speech here, give me some motivation. He goes, bet you wish you'd stuck to cricket. So there you go, getting sledged by Aussies there as well. Even on my own side, and like my dad, for example, like we're talking about my dad. I was like, when I first went to England, my parents wanted me to study, become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. Unfortunately, there was this thing called grades which got in the way of that, but wasn't happening. But all the while, my mum was like, "Come on, you got to go back to uni. You got to get an education." Sensible advice. All the while, I kept on progressing through the ranks. Then eventually the day comes when you get called up to play for your country. So I got the call. You've been picked to play for England. So I can't wait. First person I'm going to ring is my dad. I'm going to tell him, like, you can't, they've been doubting me all this while. So I ring up. Mum answered the phone. I said, "Hey, Mum, is Dad there?" She goes, "Yeah, he's just sitting here." I said, "Put the miserable bastard on." So he gets on there. I said, "Guess what?" He goes, "I've just been picked to play for England." He goes, "Oh, it's not fucking Australia, is it?"
Back to your boxing stuff. You actually have been knocked out, but it was on screen this time when you were starring. Well, I use that word loosely, but you're in a fight movie.
Oh,
and you
yeah.
were playing a fictional character, Jake Walker. I think
Can't
his
say
name
I've
was.
seen this one, Smokes.
But how was that performance from you?
I'm not getting in the Academy Awards, that's for sure. So they gave me a non-speaking role. I think they make sure of that, and there was still waiting on the invite on the Academy Awards. So I was just a friend of mine in Perth was made a movie, and it actually about his life. And then they just needed some fighters, and there's some sort of thug-like characters. So I'm not sure why I didn't get I thought I should have got the romantic guy there, mate. But they had me in there as some thug fighting. So we spent a whole day just filming fight scenes. So
I could have seen you in a PS I Love You remake.
yeah. So it was.
I saw you in the trailer of that one. You had a pretty big role in the trailer, I hear.
Yeah, well, they had to. What they wanted was, obviously, at the end of the fight scene, I ended up getting knocked out. So they said, "Okay, we can put some crash mats down, and what we want you to do is just face plant into the crash mats, but you want to see your face hitting." So I said, "Oh, okay, well, we can do that. It's okay. I'll just do it on the floor. We don't need the crash mats." They were like, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, no, it's all good. I'll just do it. I'll psych myself up and I'll just face plant." So they're like, "Oh, they're pretty excited about it," So I got hit and I just basically just full on face planted. Didn't put my hands down, just face planted. So they didn't have the camera running. I said, "Mate, I can't do that twice. That's it." So I ended up did do it again. I said, "Give me a break. Let's psych myself back up," and we did it again, and that actually made the trailer. So yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So obviously being professional athlete in probably 3 sports, you'd claim there. Is there any others that we've got to add to the list? What's your golf like?
Oh, my golf is horrible. I think I'm like literally. I always say I try and pick my mates always trying to get me to play golf, and the only way I can get out of it is golf's for people who can't fight. So it's like it's a horrible. I'm not only am I bad at it, I've got bad etiquette. I get bored. I start driving the golf buggy. I now know just not to accept it.
You can't play golf or fight, no.
No.
You need water ski. We
were both on the golf cart driving the buggies around while the Queensland Bulls golf day was on earlier this year. So
really? We got to have some designated drivers' hats, even on the golf course. So I guess that leads me to my next question, Smokes, in terms of your interest in multiple sports, obviously. Something that I was definitely not aware of, so I assume that probably most of our listeners won't be aware of as well, is that you actually founded, created and produced probably a TV show that I got absolutely hooked on, and I think you would have as well, which was Australia's Greatest Athlete, the Rex Owners sort of Australia's Greatest Athlete. That was you. That's
right, yeah. I created and produced it. It was, I'll be lying. I'm not sure if I'm able to be sued off of this podcast, but I think the 3 listeners won't dob me in. So basically I was on a show in England called Superstars, which was along the same lines. It was athletes from each sport competing in a bunch of generic events to see who the best all-round athlete was. So I sort of shamelessly stole that. And that's the first thing, is to have an idea. I didn't realise what you had to go through to get something on TV. It was huge. So I happened to know the guy who's commissioned TV shows for Channel 10. I went in and I told him the idea I had, and he said, I like the idea. He said, all you need now is $2 million, and to be able and to get a letter of intent from all the athletes. If you get that, come back with that, then I'll put it on. Okay. So I was like, okay, well, that's the end of that. Number one, I can get the letter of intent from all the athletes. That was easy enough, but $2 million, I just didn't have the lazy $2 million laying around. So
sort of us has.
Yeah, that was my next phone call. But anyway, it was. I just so happened to have a friend who worked at Octagon, and they were representing and asked to devise a television format type show for Rexona. So we collaborated and we put that show on, and that led to 3 seasons of that.
It was 3 seasons. I remember watching. How did you come up with like the list of athletes that you were going to target? Because I remember watching the first one, like Andrew Simons was the cricketer, Billy Slater was in it, Brett Delidio was in it. Like who? Obviously that. Did you actually sit down and go, these are the athletes I would like? Or
well, they are. We actually came up, we had more than that. We had better ones. But so the first ones, well, not that those were too bad. Yeah. I mean, we had Ben Cousins was the first one, but obviously he encountered some problems. He's a close family friend of ours, and he was best mates with my brother.
Yep.
And so he encountered his problem during that time. And then the other guy we had was Andrew Johns, who actually then went to the Notting Hill Festival in England, and he got done for his drug problem there. So it was like we was calling it the curse of Australia's greatest athlete. Then we had Mundine, who I thought would be, he was always calling himself the greatest athlete.
That's right. That would have been perfect. Yeah.
He came out with his 9/11 statement then. So Rexona, all the time Rexona were ringing me up every day going, get rid of him, get rid of him, get rid of him. So then we had Barry Hall, and then he knocked out the punch. So it was like ridiculous. It was like this curse that went on. So the Billy Slater, unbelievably at that time, wasn't very well known. He wasn't he was well known, but not like Andrew Johns.
Not like Johns,
so it was kind of like a step down.
Yeah, it's kind of Australia's second greatest.
Yeah, athlete. It was kind of like that. But now, since he's gone on to, I'll take credit for his whole rugby league career, obviously.
Got him started.
Yeah, I was the one who started him off. But that was how it kind of worked out, and it's a really good fun series. And
I've heard you were trying to do a sort of a version of that in Asia, maybe, and trying to get hold of MS Dhoni to be a part of it. How did that go down?
Well, without revealing numbers, because I'm not sure we're allowed to say what the athletes got, but they got a decent figure to come in. We filmed the show over the period of a week.
Is that seriously? That was actually what I was going to say, sort of behind
the scenes.
How
did we get them?
Yeah, how do you get them for that was all in a week?
We filmed it in 5 days. So we filmed it in such a way that it looked like they were coming back every week. And so obviously a new location, we had to change the locations around. But there's no way we would be able to get different athletes from the different sports over that period of 8 weeks. So we filmed, I think it was like 16 events in 5 days. So we're doing 3 or 4 events a day.
Yeah.
And then we had to piece it all together, reverse engineer it. So the athletes got paid well. Yeah. They got paid well for the week. I can't say what they got, but they got paid well. And then I got asked to do the same show in India, take it over there. So I'd basically got all the athletes, but we just needed one athlete. We needed a cricketer. And
couldn't find a cricketer in India.
Well, no, we could find a cricketer, but you try and find a cricketer that's going to be looking good in a pair of Speedos, mate. And the only one we could come up with was Dhoni. So it was as in like, he's, the other Indian, they're wonderful cricketers, maybe not necessarily renowned for their athleticism. So we thought Dhoni was the one we needed. He was the big name at the time, so that was the one we wanted. Without him, without a cricketer in India, I don't think the show works. So he came back and we said, look, this is the figure that we pay all the athletes. The other 7 are signed on. They said, well, he wants 5 times that figure.
Oh.
So we were like, okay, we went away. We said, well, we can't do that, that's a hell of a lot of money. Yeah. So they went away. We thought about it and we thought, well, there's no show without him, so we'll give him that. So we went back and said, okay, we'll give you that figure. And they went, oh, no, not for the whole show, for each day. So it was like, and we were like, well, that's bigger than our entire budget. The fee he wants is bigger than the entire budget for the show. They said, well, that's okay. If you don't want it, he's got 80 of these days lined up, like with different products and whatever, that he gets paid for this amount. So no big deal. He doesn't care. So it was like next level money, yeah.
So you just had to bin it then?
Just binned it. It didn't ever happen in India. Yeah.
Never happened.
The Indian females missed out on seeing all those Indian athletes in their Speedos.
Yeah, that's a shame. That would have been. That's all right. That's just a real shame.
It would have been like a cross between Hunger Games and Survivor.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, that's an unbelievable show. And surely, so were you always on set? You were always involved?
Yeah, I was pretty much from. I designed all the events, pretty good. The logos, the script, the concept, the trademarking, everything. I did everything from. I mean, obviously we had to hire a camera crew and everything like that, and we had event staff, but pretty much behind everything. Yeah.
And those athletes, like they actually quite sledged each other a fair bit and
stuff
as well on camera. Was that?
That was encouraged. I mean, I thought, because the one thing about the show I was with in England was it was very much event based, and you didn't get to see the athletes. So they had a different athletes every week, and they'd come in, and it was very much see who the fastest is. There was no, but I thought, well, what the public, I mean, that's what you guys, I presume why you run these podcasts, is people want to get to know the person. They want to know it's all very well. You want to go and look at my stats on Wikipedia. They're there, but you don't really know anything by looking at stats other than I wasn't that good. But you don't get to know the person. So I felt the same with the TV show, that we want to get to know the people. We want to know Andrew Simons. I don't want to. It's nice to see how fast he can run or how strong he is. That's interesting as well. But I also want to see the banter. And so we mic'd them up and we encouraged all that sort of banter, as if you would do with your mates. You know, you sledge, and we wanted to capture that. So
I've just had a brilliant idea. We got the Chocolate's greatest athlete competition.
Out of the three of us, Mitch and you and I.
And Smokes.
Oh, mate, you can't put me in this. Like, I'll win the hot dog eating competition.
Now, Smokes, I read this. I'm unsure of how true it is because you've never obviously shown me any evidence of this, but are you a qualified hypnotherapist as well?
I am actually, yes. So when I retired from cricket, I was retired. Like, I did pretty well out of the game, and I made some good financial decisions. And then one really bad one and lost it all in 2010. So
We actually did read about that as well. We were unsure of whether we were allowed to ask you about that.
Nah, mate, there's nothing. It's all out there, mate. It's on. Everything's on the record. Anyway. So I'm an open book, and I'm never hidden from anything. But what I did when I finished was I just actually went and did a whole bunch of courses. I was pretty bored as well, so I went and did some basic carpentry. I did some bricklaying course, hypnotherapy, and I was just doing things that I just felt interested in. So I went and tried to learn some skills. So if cricket coaching doesn't ever work out for me, I can hypnotise them into believing that I'm doing a really good job.
Seriously? Is that a skill that you practice? Like, if we were to go, could you hypnotise us right now? Because I've always been real, I'll be honest, I've been real so sketchy about
Well, I think, look, there's people who go on there and do it on a scale.
Like a TV show.
Yeah, and that's... I don't know what goes on there. I don't know if there's people that's a skill I'm not capable of. But
I've seen people licking their thong like it's an ice cream. And stuff like that.
Clucking like a chicken. Yeah. No, I can't. I don't know that. I mean, look, I think basically the reason why I had an interest in it is I basically used to use self-hypnosis, which in my opinion was basically just like deep visualization when I was playing or fighting. So it was something that I just had a big interest in, meditation and being in control of my emotions and my mind. So I then saw this hypnotherapy course available. And from what I can see, hypnotherapy is basically teaching people to be in a state of self-hypnosis. So I'm not able to get women to take their clothes off. That's a skill that I would definitely abuse. So
there would be a real influx in people signing up.
Funnily, I don't know why I've got no female customers. It's like it was just an interesting thing for me, and I I did that, and I still have an interest in it. So
yeah, absolutely.
There's something that I do need to know about, and I think Lee's really wanting to know about this too. He's probably too shy to ask, but it's about your hair. Every time I see it, it's in great condition.
Thank you, sir.
A good even coverage, ideal hairline. I've got more greys than you, and I'm half your age. About that. So, what's the secret
that
there?
We're recording, and I forgot to wear my hat.
Yeah, well. So I reckon it was 4 or 5 years. If you see pictures of me about 5 years ago, I reckon I look 5 years older than I do now. Yeah. So I started to lose my hair, and I went to England, and I landed there, and this I got a message, like a guy, and wasn't I don't know how he messaged me, but this guy said, "Hey, I can't help but noticing you're starting to lose your hair." So I was like, well, that's a way to start a message. I said, let's see your hair, mate. So I sent a message back to him, and I said, send me a picture of you. He says, I haven't explained myself very well. I own a hair transplant clinic. Would you be interested in a hair transplant? I'm like, nah, mate, it's all good. I'll just shave it off. I've got a good shaped head. I'll go with that. So he said, look, we'll pay you. So I just encountering some financial problems at the time. I said, this is very timely. What are we talking here? So he said, we'll give you like a decent amount of money every month that your face appears on our website. So Landmark hair transplants, if you want to look it up, I'm Absolutely. There. I'm still to this day an ambassador for them, and they put two,
because I saw a YouTube video of you waking up after your hair transplant as well. That's
yeah,
up there.
That's it. I'm not sure you're meant to sleep while it's happening, but I was like, I had a big night the night before, so I very hungover. I know it was meant to be painful, but I was slept the whole way through. So they just filled my hair in at the front and gave me a new hairline, and it's amazing. It just just like nothing happened. It's like
unbelievable.
Yeah,
that is outstanding, and something that I'm obviously very interested in has, in fact, you probably noticed that my hair has improved in terms of shininess and just general appeal.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that.
Is it the fame, the newfound fame from this podcast?
Yeah, that's right, man.
You want to look good in front of all 7 viewers. Yeah.
Smokes has put me onto a couple of tablets, so you watch. In a couple of weeks, I'll have an afro. Just started taking them, so yeah.
That's a great result.
You have to be wearing a tea cozy by next season.
It's going to be long and glorious.
So we mentioned earlier your joke-telling prowess and how we mentioned it in the previous episode. Is there any chance of dusting one off for us and letting the listeners listen to one?
Well, it's putting me on the spot a little bit, but and I always do the same thing. We have a jokes with smoke section before every
it's perfect.
Every warm up. So we start the day. I think it's a nice way. When any team that I coach always have a jokes. I nominate someone. If it's a 4-day game, we go with someone. But when the segment first started, it was just rolled off the tongue quite nicely. Jokes with smokes, and then I'd always make out my own style. I got my own style. My own style was to pretend that I didn't have a joke. And then it was like, but a funny thing happened to me on the way into the ground today. And then and people were then left unsure whether it actually happened or if it was indeed a joke. So I actually don't have any jokes at the moment. But funnily enough, on the way to this podcast, I was driving in and I do the hour commute from Gold Coast to Brisbane every day when I'm coaching, and as I was pulling into the car park here at QC, I was seeing I was a bit late, so I just ran into the back of this car in front. So I was like, oh no, now I'm going to be even later. Anyway, I jumped out of the car, and as I was like walking up to apologise to this person, the driver got it as a dwarf. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I'm trying to keep it together. Anyway, this little dwarf gets out and starts running back, and he just starts shouting at me. He goes, oh, I'm not happy. I was go, well, which one are you then? Dad jokes aren't over. Yeah.
They're just so effective, though. Well, Smokes, actually, in fact, when we were leaving Adelaide, you had your tuxedo on your shoulder and you were heading straight over. You were flying straight to Melbourne rather than back to Brisbane. You were sort of doing a bit of a dinner or a luncheon there that you were speaking at, weren't you?
Yeah.
Is that sort of like, is that your style to come in and just give it a bit of jokes, or do you actually find that they're interested in asking you other questions, or do they want you to tell stories? What do you sort of do at those engagements?
Yeah, I think I kind of like try and look at the crowd, you know what I mean? Like if I'm at a school, then I've got a certain stories that I can tell there. If I'm at a gentleman's lunch, then you can elaborate on the stories and you can go down a different path. So you kind of work your audience out. And then the elder audience, they want to hear the stories about the old players. If I start talking to some young kids, they don't know half the people I'm talking about. So, and then also you got to work out what you're doing. If I'm doing corporate stuff, you want to talk about motivation or leadership. So I try and just in everything I've ever done in life, I always say, like, any team I'm ever with, I always say, you know, it's not the strongest or the most intelligent species that survive. It's the one most adaptable to change. And I'm shamelessly stealing that off Charles Darwin, but I'd like to claim it as my own, but I can't. And I was trying to think that in life, like whatever you're doing in life, like when I fought, I became a fighter. When I'm, you know, speaking, I try and adapt to my crowd, or when I'm playing cricket, I try and adapt to the conditions. So I'm constantly trying to adapt to whatever scenario I'm in and fit into that. So I think as soon as you don't do that, then you're probably not giving yourself the best chance.
Yeah, very fair, very fair. Now, Smokes, we obviously when we interview people, we always try to give them a chance to obviously ask any of their own questions at the end, because we've spent the whole time grilling you, really. So we just think it's just a nice thing, just a nice courtesy to extend to essentially just give you the opportunity to ask us any questions or embarrass us. I mean, usually people directed at Has and his financial. How would you describe it, Has?
Being tight on money.
Be tight.
With his money.
Be tight. I, mean, I don't know. You never take him out for a drink, but I guess that explains it. I've never been out drinking with you, but now I know.
Yeah, that's right.
He also doesn't drink either. So there's two things there.
Yeah, well, if you don't drink, it's like a funny one, isn't it? If you don't drink, like, if you're having waters, you can't then go shouting like alcohol for everyone when you're drinking waters, mate. It's like
doesn't really make sense, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So you're more of a chocolate thick shake, though, man, though, aren't you?
Yeah. I definitely have maybe ordered the odd chocolate thick shake when out and about.
But then you're not going to say, you know, if you're out with the boys and it's like, can I have 7 4Xs and a chocolate milkshake, please? It's like,
well, it may have happened once, but
Luke Feldman tells a very good story about that one particular occasion.
But definitely not regularly, no.
So I sort of looked at you guys, like I said at the beginning, I said, you guys really do remind me of the Adam Hollioake. You're just out there having a go, and it's good to, this is episode 32.
Episode 32, this is, yeah.
I don't reckon you're making 40. I reckon you're done, mate. I reckon
this is probably the pinnacle, to be honest. This is as good as it gets, this interview.
Jesus, so yeah, maybe 35 then.
What a way to round out. No, fantastic, Smokes. We appreciate you obviously making the time and for having us and allowing us our debut of podcasting on the road. So thank you very much for being with us.
I'm going to be late to get into the Gabba now for the Brisbane Heat game. I might lose my contract, but that's all right.
It's been worth it, mate. It's been worth it.
Sometimes you just got to risk it to get.
I see you slumped over the bar drinking a chocolate milkshake later on there, mate.
That's perfect. Thanks so much, Smokes.
No worries, guys. Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for listening. That was our chat with Adam Hollioake. And Mitch, I'm sorry that you were not involved in that one, but wonderful interview, wasn't it?
Yep, I haven't had the chance to listen back to it yet, Lethal, but I'll trust your judgment on that one.
All right. We do apologise for it being a little bit late, that is for sure. But if you liked it, please don't forget to rate it and review it wherever you choose to listen to your podcast, maybe Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And then if you have any feedback or ideas, Mitch, where can people find us now?
On any sort of form of social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, etc. But probably more easily nowadays just on our little website that I've constructed
Where is
the last
that,
couple of weeks at wegotthechocolates.com.au.
What a website. Fantastic.
Yeah, one of the finer ones I've seen. So you can find all the information you need there, links to all of the social medias that I just mentioned, and get in contact with us from the website as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Carry on and do that.
Yeah, continue to loiter around our socials, please, guys. We're getting tagged in some great stuff. Let us know any funny stories that you have from your week or weekend, because we certainly love hearing from you and we love talking about you. Anything else to add, Mitch?
No, not too much. Maybe just a share on social media would be handy if you don't mind.
Yeah, don't keep it to yourself. It's selfish. Share it with other people as well.
Yeah, that'll do us.
Fantastic. Good luck in the fours, everyone.